Okay, but calm down and don't go too deep. Like when we ask the
Okay.
question and we
All
say
right.
action.
Continuation number 2 on section 2. Action.
Okay, I want to know about your experience now in Kuwait. As a whole, can you tell me how uh, your government treated you while you were there, medical wise, food wise, hygiene wise, everything?
Hygiene, that's funny.
How can you? Because someone like me, I'm very illiterate when it comes to all this war stuff. And what will you tell us about that experience? Everybody wants to know, did you take a shower? Did you eat? And what kind of food do you eat? If you were sick, were you taking the same medication? Or were you taken to the hospital and all that stuff?
In 6 months, I took a shower once, okay? Basically, we call them PTAs. Um, well, you, you washed what was necessary to wash, okay? Let me just put it that way. And you basically washed out of your helmet. You put your water and soap in there, and we did have a shower tent, a shower truck that was brought to us. Women, unlike the men, don't really get naked in front of each other. Okay, it's even when we're in a barracks, they'll put us in men's barracks, and all the toilets are lined up beside each other with no partitions. Okay, and so if the women are in the barracks, no one says anything about it, but the women will come out one by one and wait for one to come back before the next one goes because they don't expose themselves.
Yeah, we're very
Okay?
particular about
Yes.
that. Yeah.
And so but the men don't really have an issue with it. So when we had the shower tent, that's a shower tent, it was a shower truck. This was a truck that had partitions inside of it. And we had not had our clothes off for weeks, okay? And not completely off. You know, you might take your trousers off and have a shirt on and what have you, because you had to be able to pick up and go if you had to, something happened,
All right.
right? So somebody sent me a bottle of Genete. Now, Genete is one of these cheap colognes, but when you're out there living like an animal, it was like having a treasure. So I'm in this shower, and I just poured this stuff all over me, okay? And the women sat there on the, we had a bench, and we all sat there like this with our heads down, okay, between our legs, naked, all right, just to let our bodies breathe because we hadn't had our clothes off in so long.
Wow.
And I used to have dreams about having a manicure and a pedicure. I wondered, was I ever going to feel like a woman again, okay? Because you were just in dirt and sand all the time. And here's something that surprised me. One day, anything that someone sent you from the United States, you loved, okay?
I bet.
And there were things I ate that I wouldn't be caught dead eating now. Okay, like cheese toes and anything that they had there. Well, I'm walking down this pathway that was a pathway made by people's feet in the sand, and I'm walking down, and I see a little silver package, and I look at that, and it was about 100 yards away. I said, what's that? And I get closer, and I said, oh, that looks like a Pop-Tart. And I get closer. I said, that is a Pop-Tart, okay? And I'm looking around to see if anybody is there, and I picked it up and I put it in my cargo pocket, my pants pocket. I get back, I'm walking back to my tent, and I'm saying, please God, please make it be a cinnamon Pop-Tart. Please make it be a cinnamon Pop-Tart. And when I got back to the tent, I opened it up. It was a cinnamon Pop-Tart.
Wow.
Okay? Now, if anybody ever told me I would pick something off the ground
Wow.
to eat, okay, I would have told you were crazy.
Knowing
Okay?
who you are, I believe you.
But, like I said, we live like animals. Okay?
Wow.
Took something off the ground to eat. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
I'll never forget that.
Thanks for that. For me, it's kind of emotional hearing that. And again, that's what makes me call you the Braveheart. And that's why the show is all about you. And I'm just going to ask a very, very personal question. I know we're living now, comparing your Marine Corps experience back then, before you got retired and what is going on today. I would just give a prime example of the sexuality. Was it an open thing for you guys?
What do you mean?
Being that a man could be with a man or a woman with a
heck
woman.
no.
Was that something that was okay?
In the Marine Corps, that's never okay.
Okay.
Okay? You may have a corpsman. A corpsman is a Navy person who's in the medical field assigned to the Marines.
Okay.
Because as I said, the Marine Corps is part of the Navy. Okay?
Okay.
Even though we started 1 year before
Okay.
the Navy. And we had once a corpsman that was obviously a homosexual. Okay? And the Marines didn't really care because he wasn't one of us. Okay? But you don't walk around, all girly and you're being a man in the Marine Corps. I mean,
Okay.
somebody will hurt you.
All right.
Okay?
Wow.
That's not a Marine.
Okay, but what will you say today? Because I mean, we all do have the freedom of speech with your experience and the freedom of expressing ourselves. So, what will you say today of the young men and the young women trying to be themselves in the Marine Corps? Would you say it's an okay thing or not?
Let me just put it this way: we kind of knew who was gay in the Marine Corps,
Okay,
right?
okay.
But they were excellent soldiers. They were excellent Marines.
Okay.
Because they more than lived up to the part because they wanted to fit in.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And so you didn't have any kind of behavior like that.
That kind of portrayed
No,
that.
no.
Okay.
I
Thank
mean,
you so much for that.
Not at all.
Okay.
Okay. And one thing when we were off camera here that I was explaining is that before we went through the breach, is what we call it, before the war actually started. That was in February 1981.
Okay.
There wasn't any hanky panky or anything going on between men and women because everybody was like, never been to a war, okay? Unless you have some Vietnam vets who are senior people, but most people hadn't been to a war yet, so people weren't tried, and no one knew how they were going to act or how they were going to respond or how everybody else was going to respond. It's unknown territory, okay? And I never felt any fear until the first time I was frightened was when I was called up saying I was going to go, because not fear of dying, but fear of dying by violence.
Okay. Yeah.
And then the next time is when I was safe, came back 180 miles down into Al Jubail from El Kubrit, which is where I was most of the time. And when I saw the sign of Al Jubail, I said, "My God, I'm safe." I remember saying that to myself, and I was never conscious of the fact that I was unsafe. Not really. Okay. And the nice thing about the Marine Corps is that once we were in danger, you're on automatic. Okay. You're not thinking about a whole bunch of, you just go on automatic because you've been trained that way.
Okay.
You go on automatic, and if someone tells me to do X, we're trained to shut down what we were just doing and move to the next thing.
Okay.
So I can get very confused if somebody says, do this, and I will forget what it was I was doing because we're taught to just change and focus on the next thing that you're told to do.
Okay, hold on to that thought. By it being that, for me personally, I can see myself multitasking, but being that you were doing one thing and it led to another, has that got to do with what is going on in the military today, which a lot of people have neglected, called the post-traumatic stress disorder? And because I would love for us to get into that next, but I've always thought, and I'm sure a lot of my audience that will believe what I'm saying, that the consequences of war is dead. If you're not coming home to your family, is dead, or you're coming back with some handicap, hand cut off and all that. But the mental part of it was what I've never understood, and that will be in our next session. I would like to know more about that.
Okay, one thing I wanted to mention, we talked about how folks acted before the war. After the war now, people's behavior changed markedly. Because after the war, people aren't afraid anymore. The war is over with, okay? And now the men are interested in what the women are doing, okay? And quite frankly, that was a very frightening experience. One morning, we woke up, and there were hundreds of men around our compound.
Wow.
Okay, and we were wondering, we might have to pull out some guns here. Okay, so they're no longer concentrating on their safety or what was going to happen to them in the war, what have you. Now the danger's over with. All right.
Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
With men and men and women and women.
There were, and another thing that's interesting. Your everyday male and female really doesn't understand how different men and women are. I mean, other than the obvious. I mean, we are really different. You saw men in the raw, okay?
Wow.
Because you're in a battalion of 25,000 men and 700 and some odd headquarters battalion, 700 and some odd women, okay? And we would have to run like 4 o'clock in the morning, okay, so that the men wouldn't see us in shorts. Because, they hadn't seen women for so long, So we'd have to do things differently in order to be charitable to the men, quite frankly.
Okay.
We had, let's see, you could cut the testosterone with a knife, okay?
Wow.
And most of the people were between 18 and 25 years old, okay? And all of them very healthy.
Oh, but by the way, how old were you when you...
I was 40.
You were 40. That was when you were
I was in
made
Desert Storm when I was 40 years old.
And at what age were you made a lieutenant colonel?
See, it was after I came back. I don't really recall.